The Bar Kokhba Revolt, the rebellion Rome tried to erase today. We journey back nearly 2,000 years to uncover a chapter in Jewish and Roman history that was so violent, so transformative, and so deeply unsettling to imperial power, that Rome itself attempted to erase it from memory. I speak of the Bar Kokhba Revolt, a fierce and desperate Jewish rebellion against Roman rule that took place between the years 132 and 136 AD. It was the final and bloodiest of three major Jewish revolts against the Roman Empire. And yet, it remains one of the least known and most mysterious, in part because it was deliberately forgotten, its records destroyed, its memory wiped from imperial archives. Let us bring it back into the light. Setting the stage, Judea before the flame. To understand the Bar Kokhba Revolt, we must first understand the spiritual and political atmosphere of Judea in the 2nd century. Judea was no ordinary Roman province. Its people were fiercely monotheistic, governed not just by politics but by Torah law and Messianic hopes. The destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD, just 60 years prior, had not extinguished Jewish resistance. On the contrary, it had radicalized it. The Roman Empire, meanwhile, had grown increasingly intolerant of religious exceptions. Under Emperor Hadrian, a man known for his architectural wonders and Greco-Roman idealism, tensions reached a boiling point. Hadrian attempted to fully integrate Judea into Roman pagan culture, outlawing key Jewish practices such as circumcision, Torah study, and observance of the Sabbath. The final insult came when he announced the construction of a Roman colony, Aelia Capitolina, on the ruins of Jerusalem. Even more offensive, a temple to Jupiter was to be built on the site of the destroyed Jewish temple. For the Jews, this was not simply cultural oppression. It was spiritual abomination. And in the face of such desecration, a fire ignited, a fire named Bar Kokhba. The man of the hour, who was Bar Kokhba. His real name was Simon Ben Kokhba. But to his followers, he was Bar Kokhba, meaning son of the star, a direct reference to the Messianic prophecy of Numbers 24:17. A star shall come out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel. To the Jewish people of the time, Bar Kokhba was no mere rebel. He was the long-awaited Messiah, the warrior king who would restore the throne of David and cleanse the land of foreign rule. He was recognized as such even by Rabbi Akiva, one of the greatest Jewish sages of his time. Akiva declared Bar Kokhba to be the fulfillment of prophecy, a decision that would prove both electrifying and divisive. Under Bar Kokhba's leadership, a highly organized revolt began. Far from a band of rebels, his forces were disciplined, nationalistic, and prepared for guerrilla warfare. His government minted its own coins, revived Hebrew as a national language, and established a functioning independent state for over 2.5 years. This was no minor uprising. This was a declaration of national resurrection. The war itself, blood in the hills of Judea. The revolt officially began in 132 AD, and it spread with stunning speed. Jewish fighters utilized the natural terrain, hills, forests, and caves, to wage asymmetric warfare against the Roman legions. Archaeological evidence from places like Bether, Wadi Murabat, and the Cave of Letters tells us this was a sophisticated military operation. Roman legions were caught off guard. In some regions, they were even driven out entirely. Bar Kokhba's forces managed to liberate large areas of Judea, establishing what some call the Third Jewish Commonwealth. Letters discovered in desert caves reveal a well-structured bureaucracy, tax system, and judicial authority. Simon Bar Kokhba signed his letters as Prince of Israel. But Rome would not tolerate rebellion for long. In 134 AD, Emperor Hadrian dispatched one of his most seasoned generals, Julius Severus, freshly recalled from Britannia. Severus brought with him a brutal and effective strategy: scorched earth, slow encirclement, and the systematic annihilation of rebel strongholds. The result was utter devastation. According to Roman historian Cassius Dio, over 580,000 Jews were killed, not including those who died from famine and disease. 50 fortified towns and 985 villages were razed. The final stand came at Bether, where Bar Kokhba himself died in battle. The city fell on the 9th of Av, a date already marked in Jewish history for the destruction of the First and Second Temples. The erasure of memory. The scale of the destruction was so great that Emperor Hadrian refused to mention the revolt by name in official records. The term Bar Kokhba disappears from Roman sources. Instead, the entire region was rebranded. Judea was renamed Syria Palestina, an intentional reference to the ancient Philistines, historic enemies of the Israelites. Jerusalem became Aelia Capitolina, a pagan city forbidden to Jews. Jewish practices were outlawed. The Sanhedrin was dissolved. Rabbinic leadership was hunted or exiled. This was not only military defeat. It was cultural annihilation, an ancient form of historical censorship. It worked, to some extent. For centuries, knowledge of the revolt faded. The name Bar Kokhba was almost lost to time, until the 20th century, when archaeological excavations began to unearth the truth. What we've discovered since, thanks to modern archaeology, we've recovered a remarkable set of documents, letters from Bar Kokhba himself, written in Hebrew and Aramaic, giving orders, coordinating supply lines, punishing disobedience. These letters paint a picture of a man who was not just a warrior, but a ruler determined to build a functioning Jewish state. We've found coins minted during the revolt with Hebrew inscriptions like Year 1 of the Redemption of Israel, and images of the temple, asserting Jewish sovereignty in defiance of Roman oppression. We've uncovered the Cave of Letters, where Jewish families hid from the Romans, bringing with them legal documents, personal items, and pleas for mercy. It is here that we see the human cost of the revolt, not in numbers, but in individual stories. Was Bar Kokhba a hero or a tragedy? Jewish tradition struggled with Bar Kokhba's legacy. After the revolt, Rabbi Akiva's identification of him as the Messiah was quietly dropped. Rabbinic sources began referring to him as Bar Kokhba, meaning son of the lie. Some blamed him for leading Israel to ruin through pride and messianic fervor. But others saw him as a hero, a symbol of Jewish independence and resistance, a man who dared to dream of redemption, even at the cost of everything. Zionist leaders in the 20th century would later embrace him as a nationalist figure. The Bar Kokhba gymnastic movement, Israeli youth groups, and even military operations referenced his name as a source of pride. The debate continues to this day. Why this history matters today. So why should we remember the Bar Kokhba revolt? Because it is a story of what happens when faith meets empire, when identity refuses to be absorbed, when a people says no to the erasure of their soul, even in the face of death. It is a warning, too, that messianic hope can become messianic war, and that the line between righteous resistance and destructive fanaticism is sometimes paper thin. But perhaps most of all, it reminds us that truth, though buried, will rise. Rome tried to erase Bar Kokhba, to grind his memory into the dust of Judea. And yet, here we are, speaking his name, studying his letters, learning his story. History, when uncovered, speaks. And today, it speaks of a man, a people, and a fire that refused to go out. Bar Kokhba Revolt, 132 to 136 AD, stands as one of history's most powerful yet deliberately buried acts of national and religious resistance, in which the Jewish people, led by the messianic figure Simon Bar Kokhba, launched a full-scale rebellion against Roman imperial domination in response to religious persecution and cultural erasure, especially the desecration of Jerusalem with a Roman pagan city and temple. Far more than a military uprising, the revolt was a defiant assertion of Jewish identity, sovereignty, and spiritual destiny. Despite its temporary success, including the re-establishment of a Jewish state and the minting of independent currency, the revolt ended in catastrophic defeat, with massive loss of life, the renaming of Judea to Palestina, and the systematic attempt by Rome to erase the memory of the event itself. Yet, through archaeological discoveries, rabbinic reflection, and historical resurgence, the legacy of Bar Kokhba has re-emerged, not only as a symbol of heroic resistance but also as a sobering lesson in the tension between messianic fervor and political realism, faith and empire, memory and forgetting. Let us remember Simon Bar Kokhba, not just as a name, but as a mirror of the dangers of oppression, a mirror of the cost of freedom, a mirror of a people's dream to rise again. May we listen. May we learn. And may we never forget the rebellion Rome tried to erase.